Hey everybody, welcome to week 6. So we have 2 full weeks left. It's been a long term, right? It's been a very long term, and not really because of just the work we've been doing in this class, but because of everything else that's going on. So I want to really kind of applaud you, tell you to pat yourselves on the back if you've gotten this far, just because online education itself can be difficult when you have kids at home and you have work and all sorts of other things. But at this time during this pandemic, to be able to do what you've done, to be able to get where you've gotten so far, that's impressive. That's not an easy feat. Trust me, it is not an easy feat. I'm seeing this with so many of my students now, just the ability to stick through this and to keep pushing despite all the things that are going on. That is impressive. And so I want to encourage you and say, look, you're doing the right thing. You're in the right place. Keep pushing a little farther, a little harder, and you're going to get to the end of the term and you're going to do well. So for those of you who may feel like you're still far behind or even a little bit behind, and you're not sure about catching up, you can still catch up. There still is plenty of time. Time is running out, but there still is time. So I will be accepting all late work. Let me know if you have specific questions, if you have specific concerns, email me, okay? So what are we talking about this week? Well, we're focusing on the internet and we're focusing on browsers. And so this is going to be a very interesting week. This is personally my favorite week of the entire term, in large part because it gets into my area of specialty, which is information literacy. And so I'll mention something about that here in a minute. Now, what are we going to be talking about? Primarily, it's going to be browsers. So the discussion board is going to be about comparing different kinds of browsers. There's going to be a video there, so make sure you take a look at that video. But in order to understand what browsers are, you need to understand a little bit about what the internet is. Now I'm going to do an entire video about the internet, and it's going to really be what is the internet versus the web. Now the internet is kind of the nuts and bolts, the hardware of the internet we have, and then the web is what sits on top of it, kind of the software and the websites and everything else. So I'll have more to say about that because that's a very, very interesting thing, is kind of breaking down what the internet and what the web actually are. But in order to really fully understand what web browsers are, you need to have some background there. I can tell you a little bit about them right now. Web browsers, without that background, web browsers are basically software that allows you to interact with the internet, okay? It's not some magic doorway through which you can kind of get into this magical world of the internet, like, going through the wardrobe in Narnia or something like that. But what these things really allow you to do is kind of translate the code that makes up web pages and websites into something that is understandable, something that is interactive, right? You have videos and you have online polls and you have all sorts of stuff, right? Blogs that you can blog on and everything. And that's all code, okay? And I'll say more about that in a subsequent video. But the browser largely translates that. Browsers do a lot more than that, though, too. There's security in browsers. There are things that allow for easier navigation and easier surfing of the internet. So there's lots of different things that browsers can do. So make sure you're looking over the lecture notes a lot, and make sure you're looking at my other thread in the discussion board about browsers. I'll have more to say there. So we're going to be talking about browsers. There will be some information, like I said, about information literacy, and this is something I really find very interesting and very important. Information literacy is, just like the word says, it's making sure you are very literate, you understand very well how you gather, interpret, and understand information, specifically information that you find online. You'll hear lots of stuff nowadays about fake news, or you can't trust these people, or CNN says this, and Fox News says this, or Wikipedia should never be used ever by anybody, or I get all my news from Facebook, what's the big deal? All sorts of stuff like this. We need to become more information literate, meaning we need to have a better understanding of how we can understand and interpret information, how we can determine what is reliable and what is not reliable online. The assumption is, well, it's online, it's on a really cool website, it must be reliable. Or, don't worry, I know what's reliable and what isn't. Truth is, we all get taken by bad information at some point. So we'll talk a little bit about, in the lecture, about information literacy. I wish we had more time to talk about this because it is a very important topic. But this is something that you really want to focus on and really think about a lot. How do I determine what is reliable information on social media, or through Google when I'm searching on Google, or when I'm watching the local news, or when I'm watching cable news or something like that? That can be very difficult. It seems easy, but isn't always as easy as you think. So remember to look at some of the information literacy stuff as well. There will be a couple of assignments this week. One of them is going to be in Microsoft Excel, and it's going to be a chart. It's really easy. It's kind of fun. So we'll have a lot to keep us busy. Just remember, folks, 2 more full weeks. There's that little half week as well, but 2 more full weeks, and then you're done, and you've gotten through the toughest term probably anybody has ever had in college ever, just because of all this stuff. So pat yourselves on the back. We're almost there. Thanks.